all for coming.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
So when we first started thinking about putting this on, we're like, oh, where should we have the venue? Like, we thought about Lazy Monk, and we're like, oh, we're going to probably have to pay for the venue because there's going to be like 1 or 2 people that show up. But it looks like we maxed out the room, so that's pretty good for a first meeting here. Just quick introductions. I'm Kevin Bryant. I'm the Director of Security Operations at WIN. I have 4 kids. I live in Eau Claire.
I'm Travis Robelia. I'm an MNC tech at WIN, and I also live in Eau Claire.
So we do have quite a few people in here. We're gonna do room and introductions. Maybe skip that for now. So I just want to go over a quick vision. I've been kicking around this idea for a couple of years now on kind of starting one of these, and I was hoping that somebody else would have started it, but nobody seemed to have done it, so I decided that you should, hey, just start a local security InfoSec group. So I kind of thought about 5 objectives, but this is kind of a group, not our group, me and Travis's, but our, like, everybody in this whole room's group, that we can just kind of get together and talk about information security. So objective number 1 that I kind of want to reach is to kind of have this as a platform to allow everybody to gain a better understanding of how hackers actually operate, and also for everybody to gain information on how to effectively defend yourself and your company against hackers, and also understand how other local businesses in Eau Claire is handling this problem. You know, where their struggles are, where they are exceeding, and we can kind of learn from each other. And to basically increase the security of businesses in Eau Claire and the surrounding cities, obviously. And the last one is to create relationships. You know, there's lots of talking going on before we start, and that's great. You know, it's just awesome that we can come here and talk about security and have something in common and kind of grow these relationships. So, quick disclaimer. If you hack people, it's not our fault. If you go to jail, it's not our fault. Only do this stuff if you get written permission from your boss, and even then, make sure you have a lawyer. The ideas shared in this presentation are mine and Travis's, not our employers. So the title of this presentation is Your Systems Are Just Asking to Get Compromised. And just asking is kind of bolded and emphasized here, and you'll kind of figure out why by the time this presentation is done. So this is a focus on a network-based attack where most organizations are vulnerable, and it's super easy. I actually had my 7-year-old go through this attack, and he was able to do it. Obviously, I kind of showed him what it was, and as long as you can copy and paste and run a couple commands, you can basically easily hack a network within minutes. Kind of a game over situation. But first things first, since we have a large scattering of different people here, different backgrounds, some of you are students, some of you are obviously, you know, been in the industry for 20 years or so. I kind of just want to cover some of these glossary of information, basically, so we can get all in a playing field. So first things first, IP address. I'm sure everybody in this room probably knows what an IP address is. It's basically kind of like the Google Maps of the internet, right? You go to google.com and it tells you exactly what address you need to go to. It's basically that. DNS is a system where it resolves names to IP addresses, because humans remember and only understand names. We understand google.com, but we don't understand an IP address for google.com. It's very hard to remember that. Whereas computers only understand IP addresses. DNS servers are normally set up by DHCP and pushed out to your clients on your LAN. NETBIOS, or Network Basic Input-Output System. Modern networks, you don't really have to worry about something like this, you know, configuring it or setting up or even know that it's there. It was made back in 1983 with zero security in mind, and is still enabled by default on all modern operating systems. So what that does is basically it assists your OS and any applications that are running on your computer to kind of know what other computers are on the network by basically your computer name, more or less. So it doesn't require any configuration, doesn't require setting up a server in your network or anything like that. It's just built into the OS and off to the races. You can play Doom with each other, so forth. LLMNR LLMNR is Link Local Multicast Name Resolution, kind of a mouthful, but it was released back with Windows Vista, hooray, in 2006, and it was created to replace NETBIOS. But it kind of fell in the same traps where it's not secure very much at all. It's enabled by default on modern OSs and still no security. Password hashes, this is another good thing to kind of understand before we jump into this, is it's basically a secure way to store and transmit information such as your password so that it's just not clear text living on your computer or being sent across the network. It's a one-way process, and what I mean that is that you take your password and you put it through a mathematical algorithm where you get this big blob of gibberish that you don't really know what it is. And you can't take that blob and then decrypt it per se. The only way that you can really figure out what that is taking some of these plain text and then verifying that it matches that same hash. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. You can do a brute force attack or a dictionary attack. We're not going to get super in-depth into password hashes or cracking and stuff like that. That'd be probably cool for another presentation that we can do. So during this presentation, we have two actors. On the left there, and on the right is the bad guy, the left is the victim. So our victim, his name is Steve, and he wants to Google something, and he also needs to access files on the file server. The hacker, he wants to hack Steve and his company. So the attack vector and the attack service of this attack, probably should mention this, is that the attacker needs to be on the same local network. This can't be leveraged if the attacker is not on your network or on the internet. It works on all modern operating systems, this attack, and it's not patchable. This is something that you can't get fixed via Windows updates or anything like that. The only way to fix it is basically ditch these protocols. And we'll get to that a little bit more. So the plausible attack scenario for this attack is that, your bad guy is at Starbucks or at a hotel and so forth, and then your victim, Steve, will come to that same LAN network, connect to it, and then get compromised. The other plausible attack scenario is that the bad guy comes to that person's place of business and plants a device or gets on the network some way, such as, using a little Raspberry Pi device, by a show of hands, who would be able to tell if a tiny little computer just plugged in under a conference room or something like that is on your network? Like no hands, like totally plausible that somebody could just walk in and plug that in. Okay. So, possible way to get compromised there. The third scenario, which is probably the more plausible of all of them because it's less chance of getting caught, is that the attacker will use the internet and then send one of your users a malicious PDF or attachment or a website and gets somebody else at the company to click on it and infect that person's computer. Once that person's computer is infected, the attacker, the adversary, has control of that person's computer where they can then leverage this attack inside your network to attack the company and to also attack Steve. So Steve has an objective. He wants to access the file server, and what he does there is he pulls up Windows and goes / file server. So what happens during that? There's an order of operations on what your computer is doing, and the first step is it asks itself, am I the file server? Step number 2 is there a static record located in your host file? Step number 3, does my DNS server know where that file server is at? And if not, it goes on to the next one. Number 4, it will then do an LLMNR broadcast to the network, asking everybody on the network, does anybody know where file server is at? And then it will ask using NetBIOS, same thing. And then finally, if there's no answers, it'll give up and say, tell the user, I don't know where you want to go. So Steve wants to request the resource google.com. So it asks its DNS servers. It already failed the host file. It already failed the knowing that it itself is google.com. DNS server responds with an IP address. The user then is able to use that IP address to browse Google. Hooray. What happens when the user types in file server with 5 R's, 1, obviously a typo on the user's part. It asks the DNS server. DNS server has no clue where they're trying to go because the resource is at file server 1. The user's machine will then do an LLMNR and a NetBIOS broadcast on their local subnet, asking where that file server is. So this is where the problem comes in. The adversary listening on the network, they can respond to that LLMNR and NetBIOS request to Steve. So this can happen in a couple different ways, not just by your users accidentally typing in, \/\. If you have a shared a file share that's currently broken, maybe you're traveling, you're at Starbucks, obviously your file share is broken. Your computer is continually asking, hey, is my file shares up yet? Another way too is if you ever have a map printer or something like that, your computer's constantly asking, hey, is my Recro printer connected yet? So your computer in the background is constantly doing this. So we have a quick demo of Wireshark, and you don't have to press anything, Travis. It's good to understand and see this inside Wireshark by showing of hands who have used Wireshark. Everybody, excellent. Practically everybody. So it should be pretty reviewed for everybody. On the left is the adversary's computer, if they were on your network. On the right is Steve's computer. He's running Windows 10, fully patched. So I'm pulling up Wireshark here, starting to capture, and you can filter and look at just LLMNR traffic by doing a UDP filter on port 5355. So we started the filter. Now the user is going to accidentally type in a typo or of a system that doesn't exist. And immediately you'll see that the adversary can see all of this traffic. They can see where it's coming from, where it's going to. It's a broadcast. And then what protocol is, an LLMNR protocol. And it's asking for the file server A record, basically, where that exists. Same thing with NetBIOS. To do a filter on that, it's NBNS to find any NetBIOS name service requests. Same thing here. So now that we can kind of see that traffic, what can the bad guy do with that? So the user, once the bad guy responds saying, hey, that's me, I'm the file server, the user's computer will then connect to that bad guy's computer saying, here's my NTLM v2 hash, basically his password hash. All the bad guy has to do is capture that hash, crack it, and then use it to do bad things. So we're using a tool called Responder in Linux. They do have a PowerShell version of that command, basically, that you can run in Windows. And then we're going to use John the Ripper to crack that hash. So a quick demo of using Responder here and actually seeing respond, and it responds to that request. So same setup as last time, bad guys on the left. Come on in. So here's the command here, responder -i. -i means what interface you want it to listen on. ETH0. --LM, basically just telling responder to downgrade anything if possible. -V was just verbose mode. So down there you can see that the poisoners are on and working for LLMNR, NETBIOS, and MDNS or multicast DNS. And it's currently listening for anything on the network. So on the right side, we're going to have the user accidentally go to a typoed website or a typoed resource. And then you'll see that responder poisoned the answer from the victim for the record file server 2. And then you'll see here the actual username that connected, their username and the computer name, and their NTLM v2 hash. Super easy. Like I said, my 7-year-old could do that. So, now what do we do when we have that hash? We want to crack it to actually get the actual password. You can't use that hash in a hash the hash type attack if you're familiar with that. Basically, hash the hash is taking the hash and then you can just use it, reuse it to across the network without even knowing the plain text version. So we're going to copy and paste this hash out of the response. We're going to shove it in a text file quick. And then we're going to use John the Ripper. And you just basically point the text file to the program John. It's preloaded on Kali. And literally that's how long it took to crack that password. Less than a second, I guess. So it loaded that one NTLM hash, and it shows here the password for this user was Eau Claire InfoSec for this workstation. So now that the hacker has the plain text version of the user's password, he can log into any LAN resource that's available to that user. So that would be logging in any file servers, logging into maybe a VMware cluster, accessing that user's email account, remote desktoping to anything in the network that has remote desktop open with a valid user, with that user's credentials that's valid to that machine. And they can use a really fun tool called psexec, and that basically allows the hacker to execute commands across the network, across port 445, which is open on most people's networks, and the bad guy can just basically log in with those creds and then run anything, basically put a backdoor on everybody's machine and compromise Steve. So here's a quick demo of abusing these stolen credentials. Just a quick file browser trick. So there's some very sensitive documentation on Steve's desktop there. On the attacker machine, he's going to browse to that SMB share using the $C sign trick, if you've ever done that before. As long as you have a valid credit on that machine and the port's open, which it is on most users, most organizations' desktops. So I'm providing that username and that password that we just got done cracking. And now I am viewing that user's file system like an administrator would on that person's computer. So there's that very important work document. All my goodies. So simple as that. So obviously, since that they have the remote ability to look at files, they have remote ability to write files, and it's just basically game over. The last one is just using the stolen credentials to log into another machine. Obviously, pretty basic. Everybody's probably used remote desktop. But in Linux, here's the command that you can use to log in remotely using remote desktop using free RDP. And obviously the user was logged in, so he got logged out while I logged in. Probably the hacker wouldn't necessarily log into his machine, but maybe, another machine on the network. So, game over, right? So Travis is going to talk about WPAD attack.
Right. WPAD attack stands for Web Proxy Auto Detection. And that's getting out to the internet. So basically, Steve in this attack wants to get to the internet. His computer is sending out this, he's basically just asking for a proxy. Proxy comes along, says that's me. Steve's computer says okay, goes through the proxy. All of his internet goes through the proxy, unbeknownst to him. So in the attack, he's going to go to a DNS server. He's going to ask for the WPAD. In this case, our DNS server doesn't know. It's going to go out and ask all the other computers, where's WPAD? Hacker comes along, says that's me. So now Steve wants to get to the internet, goes through his new proxy, which is the hacker. Hacker can inject whatever he wants on there, monitor his stuff, anything in plain text the hacker can see. It can also provide fake websites, and then you're downloading stuff, that malicious software, and it's game over. So here's a demo of the WPAD attack with Responder. Same thing, Responder, we've got our interface. The -W is with WPAD. Start that up. You see that WPAD is on and working. And Steve decides to just go and click on browser. Doesn't even need to go anywhere. Here we have a whole bunch of stuff that Steve's computer decided to tell us without him clicking on really much. So here we have wpad.dat, which is basically the configuration file saying where should I be going for everything, and in this case we're saying everything goes through us. We're the attacker, we want everything. So here we've got Steve's username, again we've got Steve's hash, and again we could throw that into John Ripper and get his password. So, how do we fix it?
Any questions on that one?
Yeah, WPAD's actually new to me. Is that something all computers automatically do is look for a proxy?
Yep. Yeah, it was made a long time ago. It was never formally made into a real standard, but they just kept it in forever.
Now, is that is that OS specific?
To my knowledge, it works on Linux and Mac also.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it's browser specific. It comes in Chrome. Chrome will look at IE settings to see if, hey, should I ask if there's a WPAD server on the network? And same thing with Firefox. I think it just looks at IE settings, but it's configured right in there.
I think the default setting for IE is auto detect.
Yes, the default setting is auto detect. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then later on the slides, you see where the settings are for all these things, so you actually see it's presented in not in the usual browser formats and other locations, but yeah, for fixing it, basically just get rid of them. So, how to disable LLMNR? Easiest way is through group policy. Push out a group policy. Windows, enabling something to disable something. It's a little backwards, but here's where it's at. If you've got AD running, this is where it's at in the file location. You'd come to here, enable it to shut it off. How to disable it in Linux? Pick an editor of your choice, Nano, Vim, VI. Go to this file location, resolved.conf, uncomment, which is taking out this pound sign right here. You'd have LLMNR, change the yes to no. Exit, save it, restart the service, this command right down here, and then you're good to go. Disabling NetBIOS in Windows. This counts for every single interface. This is a regular physical interface, VPN, wireless, etc.
Yeah, this one's kind of a pain in the butt to manually disable because you have to go to every single interface. Otherwise, it doesn't get disabled. So
We'll get to that.
we'll get it. We found this cool PowerShell command that you can run.
Because we want to work smarter, not harder. So we're going to come here, go to properties, and then go to advanced, and we're going to set that guy to disable.
Yeah, and by default, it's default. Basically, it asks its DHCP server if it should be enabled or disabled. So you can actually disable the setting also if you configure it in DHCP, but I would not recommend relying on that, because when your laptop moves out of your network to like Starbucks, you don't have control of that DHCP server, so you want to manually hard code it set on every single workstation.
And also, if you're on network, and I'm the hacker, it's first come, first serve.
Yeah.
You reboot your computer in the morning, I'm here, I talk to you first, I'm DHCP server, I'm going to tell you yes. So, this command, so we're going to put all this stuff on the website, so you don't have to write all this down.
It's up there. It's up there already, by the way. Just go to ecinfosec.com. There's a link to download all the slides with or without eVideo.
So that way you can just copy and paste it, and there's no fear to go with the PowerShell.
So what that command actually does, go back. This is a PowerShell command that loops through all of the network interfaces. And then for each interface, it's setting the TCP/IP NETBIOS option to 2, which is disabled.
So
yeah, it's basically moving that.
So on Mac, run that command, and it's good and done. So disabling it on Windows, you can get to the local area network settings.
This is like under the proxy settings of your local computer, or if you go to like Internet Explorer, then go to Internet options, it takes you to one of these screens.
That's the default. We want to uncheck that, and then click OK. Here's a way to do it through group policy.
This is for
a little
WPAD.
bit more extensive, so we included a link.
Yep.
And that way there's more, like, we're not going to put all those steps in one slide. With Mac, you go to the interface itself, come to here, go to proxies, and then uncheck the auto discovery. For your personal computer, the easiest way is just host file. You go in there, 255.255.255.255. It's dead.
Yeah, you're basically black holing it. Remember, the first step is, or the second step after the first step is, am I the WPAD server? The second step is, it will look in its host file. So if you black hole it in your host file, it's not going to then proceed to the other steps to get compromised. So if you have a way of editing your host file globally that might be easier than the other ones for some reason, you can do it this way, but the other way is recommended.
You can try a responder with Kali Linux. It comes on there. Jack the Ripper is on there by default. A whole bunch of good tools on Kali if you want to try this out on your own. Again, disclaimer, don't use it for malicious purposes. This is a learning tool. Please use it as such.
Yep.
This A right here.
The A is the important part in the safe mode. If you don't put the dash A in there, it's basically you are poisoning requests on the network. We kind of should have maybe switched it the other way to make it safer, but dash A is just basically analyze mode. So it won't respond to anything. You should be very reasonably ensured that it's not going to do anything malicious or break things if you use dash A.
You can tell this by when you go back to all the demos. There's a whole bunch of green, all those ons. A lot of those are going to shut off.
Yeah.
A lot of the poisonings right at the beginning. It's basically just going to look at traffic, and then see, basically some more information in there. And it's not going to really hurt anybody on the network.
So some other general recommendations that would prevent this attack from happening or severely limit the end outcome. The first one is to use strong network segmentation, such as using private VLANs and also locking down your incoming firewalls so that other adversaries on your network can't PSXX to your machine, can't remote desktop to and so forth. Private VLANs will basically create a private VLAN for every single host on your network so that they can't crosstalk with other people on your network. They wouldn't be able to see any LLMNR traffic or anything like that.
A lot of good security practices. We talk about like north and south traffic, you leaving your network, or external sources coming back in. There's also east and west. So it's my computer talking to somebody else's computer.
Yeah. The last one too, use strong passphrases. So in our demo, we used kind of a crappy password, right?
9 characters.
It was 9 characters, took less than a second. If you have good passphrases in your environment, like every single user accounts using 18 characters or better, don't use passwords, use passphrases, a series of words put together that's really easy to remember. But cracking those hashes are going to take really, 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 really long time, if not impossible. So once you get past like 16, 17 characters, it's basically good luck.
So with passwords, the better the hardware, the less time it's going to take. We cracked that password, 9 characters, with not a new computer by any means.
Yeah, this guy right here.
Maybe 6 or 4 gigs of RAM,
right.
Something like that. It's not fancy. So, and it took less than a second.
Yeah, and hackers have huge computing clusters, right? They have basically a gaming rig with 8 video cards in it. Each of them are all CUDA processing, so they have like upwards of thousands of actual processors cracking away at those hashes using OCL Hashcat and other better cracking programs. Maybe another talk we can talk about in the future. But so, quick question: how many companies in this room, or even home users, are not vulnerable to this attack? 2, 3?
Not my company, definitely not my company.
That's actually honestly more hands than I thought I would see, because every pen tester I've talked to, like, this is like 30-second game over for them. Every client they go into, boom, game over.
We're pen tested twice a year.
Excellent.
I don't have to
You bank probably, or?
Great Lakes Higher Education.
Okay. What kind of company are you from?
Me?
Yeah, like bank or?
I do pen testing tooling.
Okay. You don't count. Did you raise your hand too, saying that you? No? Okay, I thought there was somebody else over here. Okay. All right. Next. So who's gonna fix this at their company? Just 2? Only 2 people's gonna fix this? Come on.
I'm actually surprised that we're talking about SMBs.
I know. Yeah. Couple more things, guys. Couple more things. Hold on. I just want to say thank you to my employer, Win. They gave us $100 to kick towards buying these microphones so that we can record them for the video. They also gave us money to post ads on Facebook. By a show of hands, how many people found out about this via like Facebook ads or something like that? A good chunk of you. Okay, excellent. So they allowed us to kick some money towards that. In the future, they may be helping us more with like food and drinks and stuff. So donations are welcome. If you want to help see this event grow, let me know if your company would be interested in helping out. Definitely help out a lot. Another thing too is help spread the word. Like this was our first meeting, but I think we can, double the size of this event next month or whatever the next one that we do it. So you can do that on, social media. Let your coworkers know. When we post this video online, link them to it. You may download these slides at, like I mentioned, ecinfosec.com /slides. Or you can just go to this main website and there'll be a link there. We'll have the presentation available soon if the recording works okay. Thanks for coming. Stick around, drink some beer, chat some. All right, now I'm done.
Nice job, man.
There you go.